Well, hello everybody. Nice to touch base with you again this week, and I hope God's been good to you this week and you've really seen him at work once again, because he is faithful and he does stick with us and he does guide us, and I've seen him working in my own life this last week, and so I trust you have too. But coming to you today from the front door of my house, it's quite a noisy place. You might hear some vehicles going past through the course of my chat with you, but I'll explain why in just a moment. But I'm dressed like this today also because I spent a few hours in our new little studio there in the office, just doing some renovations. And I want to thank Pastor Wolfgang for coming down last week and giving a couple of days of his time to do some prep work in there as well. It's coming along, and I'll share some pictures with you as it starts to look a little bit more like an actual studio space. But I just wanted to ask for your prayers over the next few days, because on Sunday the conference nominating committee is going to be considering what person they're going to put into the role of General Secretary, Chief Financial Officer. That's currently held by Ms. Natalie Scott, who has done a wonderful job in that role over the last few years, and but she has indicated that she doesn't want to continue past session, and then session's been moved back, which puts it into too far back for her plans, and so they're looking at maybe a year-end changeover to find somebody else to step into that role. And while we're going to miss Nat and all of the great stuff that she's brought, it is really important that the right person step into that role. So people have applied, and the nominating committee on Sunday will be looking at those names and considering who best will take that role moving forward. So if you could commit that to prayer, because it's so important to have a good leadership team, a good conference team, and there's so much potential here in the NAC, and there's so many good things that are in the process of happening and being organised, and it's just important to have somebody, the person that God wants in that role. So if you could pray about that the committee will be guided to choose the person that God wants. That's really important, so thank you. Why am I standing here? Because this Friday night is October 31, and in Townsville here and in many places around Australia, there's going to be kids dressed up in the scariest outfits that you've ever seen, going from house to house, knocking on doors and calling out trick or treat. What is it? It's that annual festival known as Halloween. Now, it boggles my mind. Well, two things do. First of all, that this is an American thing that's got such traction in Australia. The second thing that I don't get with it all is that it kind of commemorates and celebrates everything that is scary, actually everything that's terrifying, not just to kids but adults, talking about the underworld and the dead and spirits and spooks and creepy things and all the rest, and it's kind of got this nice family facade all over it, and so I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but we're finding it gaining so much more traction here in Australia, and so possibly, depending where you live, somebody might be knocking on your door on Friday night, as they'll probably be knocking on mine. And so I guess I just wanted to challenge you with this thought. When somebody knocks on your door and you open it and you see a bunch of kids dressed in crazy scary costumes with big grins on their faces yelling out trick or treat, how are you going to reflect Jesus to those kids? Because it's the one day in the year where the community could possibly be beating a path to your door for all the wrong reasons, but they're coming to your door, the door of a Christian Adventist believer in Jesus. And so what are they going to find when you open that door? What's your response going to be? And I just want to leave that with you to ponder, because we don't agree with the festival. It stands for everything demonic and satanic that we don't stand for. But the kids who are doing this don't know what they're doing. A lot of the parents who encourage the kids in this don't know much about it either. They just see this as another fun family activity that happens annually. So how do we interact? If you're going to open your door, how are you going to interact? And I just want to leave that with you for your thinking, because whatever we do in the community, as our face to the community, we want to represent Jesus. And that's really important. And so if you're going to be home and you are going to open your door, think about how you can best represent Jesus to those little people who are so excited to be out there getting sweets and chocolates and so forth from them. I want to share with you a text today that relates to what the nominating committee are doing and to some other events going on at the moment, and it comes from 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 1 and 2. And there Paul says to that young pastor, I urge you first of all to pray for all people. Ask God to help them, intercede on their behalf, and give thanks for them. That's great advice, because we can be a praying people. We should be a praying people. We are, for the most part, a praying people, and we do intercede on behalf of others to God. But then he goes on and he says in verse 2, pray this way for kings and all who are in authority, so that we can live peaceful and quiet lives marked by godliness and dignity. We've got an election of sorts on Sunday, choosing a new General Secretary and CFO for our conference. Pray for the committee. But here in Queensland as well, we've got a state election on this Saturday. And we need the person that God wants in that role, so pray for the election. Pray for the outcome. And then, of course, early next week, there is the presidential election. And, of course, whoever gets in there has a real dramatic effect on what happens globally. That person impacts stock markets, world events. That person chooses whether they're going to play nicely with other countries and be conciliatory, or whether they're going to be inflammatory and confrontational. It makes a huge difference who gets into the presidency in the United States. And it can certainly usher in last day events quicker or slower, depending on the personality that sits in that seat. And so it's so important. And so I encourage you with that advice that Paul gave to young Timothy 2,000 years ago. Pray for kings and all who are in authority, so that we can live peaceful and quiet lives marked by godliness and dignity. I like the idea of the sound of that peaceful and quiet life. And I want my life also to be marked by godliness and dignity. But folks, would you just pray? Pray for all of these elections that are happening this weekend at our local church, in our state here, and in the US as well, because that has a global impact. And we just want God to continue to guide and lead. We know He is in charge of world events, that nothing happens without Him knowing about it or even letting it happen. And so it's good that He's on His throne and He's in control, and you can rely on Him. So continue to talk to Him in prayer. Continue to listen for His voice, look for His leading, and I know that He'll guide you through to everlasting life and everlasting joy and happiness in His presence. So until next time, take care and God bless.